He was dying, and the only thing he wanted was to leave something behind for the daughter he loved most. But as he took his last breath, someone changed everything. A stolen inheritance. A family torn apart. A daughter forced to fight against betrayal, lies, and secrets buried deep within the walls of her own home. You won't believe what she uncovered, and how far they went to silence her. This is not just a story. This is a fight for justice, a journey through heartbreak, and a reminder that the truth always finds its voice. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. Claire Whitmore hadn't spoken to her father in 10 years. The silence between them was deep. It wasn't the kind of silence that comes from distance or distraction. It was the kind that comes from wounds, old, raw, and never healed. She remembered the day she left the Whitmore mansion for good, slamming the heavy oak door behind her with tears in her eyes and her mother's final words still echoing in her ears. That was a lifetime ago. Now, she was 28, living in a small studio apartment in Chicago. A single bedroom, peeling walls, and paint stains on every surface. Her art was scattered everywhere, unfinished canvases, sketches taped to the walls, and color palettes littering the kitchen counter. The scent of turpentine clung to her clothes. She was in the middle of painting when the phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize. "Hello," she said, brushing her hair out of her face with a smudge-covered hand. "Miss Whitmore?" a woman's voice asked, calm but slightly hesitant. "Yes, this is Claire. This is Nurse Evelyn Carter. I work at Whitmore Manor. I'm calling about your father." Claire froze. Her hand tightened around the phone. "What about him?" "I'm sorry to say this, but your father is very sick. He's in the final stage of pancreatic cancer. He doesn't have much time." Claire didn't respond right away. Her chest felt tight. Her father, Edward Whitmore? That towering, proud man she hadn't seen in a decade? Sick. "Why are you calling me now?" she asked finally, her voice sharp. "He hasn't wanted to see me in 10 years. There was silence on the other end, and then Nurse Carter said something that made Claire sit down. "He's been asking for you." Claire's heart skipped a beat. "What?" "Almost every night, when the pain gets bad, he whispers your name. He said he needs to talk to you. Before it's too late." Claire blinked, staring at the floor, her mind spinning. So many things she wanted to say, but none of them came out. "Please," Nurse Carter said, her voice softer now. "If you want to see him, you should come soon. Days. Maybe a week, at most." Claire ended the call with a shaky hand. That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window of her apartment, watching the city lights flicker against the skyline. The past clawed at her, memories of her mother's funeral, the cold way her father blamed her, how he remarried within the year. How he shut her out of his life like she was a stain. But something about that call wouldn't let her go. She packed her bag the next morning. Not much, just a few clothes, her sketchbook, and the old photograph of her mother she always carried in her wallet. She called a friend to watch her cat. Then she booked a train ticket to upstate New York. As the train rumbled past fields and towns, Claire stared out the window and wondered what she was walking into. The Whitmore estate looked the same, but colder. The gate still stood tall and proud, iron twisted into elegant patterns. The long driveway curled through the woods like a serpent, leading to the mansion perched at the top of a hill. It was a grand place, grey stone walls, high windows, and tall ivy crawling up one side like old scars. Claire stepped out of the taxi and stood for a moment, her suitcase in one hand and a knot in her stomach. The mansion used to feel magical when she was little. Now it just felt haunted. Before she could ring the bell, the door opened. Margot, her father's second wife. Always perfect. Always polished. Margot wore a sleek black dress and a pearl necklace. Her blonde hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her makeup was flawless, even at 10 in the morning. Her expression didn't change when she saw Claire. "Well, you actually came," Margot said flatly. Claire stood her ground. "I got a call." From the nurse, I assume. She's too sentimental. Margot didn't move aside. Claire waited. I want to see him, Claire said. He's sleeping, Margot said. He's very weak. You can see him later. I came all this way. And now you'll wait. Like everyone else. Claire's jaw tightened. This wasn't a surprise. Margot never liked her. But still, it hurt. From behind Margot, a tall young man stepped into view. Sharp jawline, clean suit, and eyes that didn't quite meet hers. Avery, Claire said with a small nod. Avery nodded back. Barely. Claire. They weren't exactly siblings. Margot's children were from her first marriage. But after she married Edward, they moved in and became the new Whitmore children. Claire was pushed out. And then another face appeared. Lena. Younger than Claire. Pretty, in a cold, calculated way. Expensive clothes. Expensive attitude. Well, well, Lena said with a fake smile. The prodigal daughter returns. I'm not here to fight, Claire said. I just want to see my dad. I'm sure you do, Lena said, tilting her head. But don't get any ideas. Everything's already taken care of. What's that supposed to mean? Margot cut in, voice cool and sharp. It means that your father already put his affairs in order. He's not in a state to reconsider anything. So let's keep this visit polite and brief. Claire clenched her fists. Is he even awake? He's sedated right now, Avery said, speaking for the first time. They increased the dose last night. He was in pain. Claire's stomach turned. I thought he asked to see me. He wasn't in his right mind, Margot said quickly. He hasn't been for weeks. Claire wasn't sure what was true anymore. She stared past them, into the grand hallway behind the door. She remembered the marble floors, the gold-framed paintings, the chandelier she used to swing from when no one was watching. I'll wait, Claire said finally. Margot stepped aside, just enough to let her through. The house smelled like roses and antiseptic. Like something beautiful trying to cover something rotten. They gave her the guest room, far from Edward's. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the faded wallpaper, and remembered the last thing her father said to her. You're nothing like your mother. It wasn't a compliment. That night, Claire wandered downstairs. The halls were quiet. No music, no voices, just the hum of a rich, dying house. She passed her father's study, the door shut tight. But something caught her eye. A flicker of orange. She turned and saw a small flame in the fireplace of the sitting room. It was almost out. She stepped closer. Among the ashes, a corner of paper stuck out, slightly burned. She knelt, careful, and pulled it free. The paper was crisp, official-looking. A corner of a seal. A line of text. To be executed upon the death of Edward L. Whitmore. Her blood ran cold. Suddenly, she heard a soft voice behind her. You shouldn't be in here. It was the nurse, Evelyn Carter. A petite woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and tired hands. Claire stood quickly. I wasn't trying to snoop, I just... Evelyn looked past her to the paper. Then back at Claire. They made him sign something, Evelyn whispered, when he was too weak to hold a pen. Claire stepped closer. Who? But before Evelyn could answer, footsteps echoed down the hall. Margot's voice rang out, sharp and warning. Claire? Is that you? Evelyn gave her a quick look, half warning, half apology, and disappeared down another hallway. Claire tucked the burned paper into her coat pocket. Margot entered the room, looking annoyed. What are you doing? Just getting a glass of water, Claire said smoothly. Margot didn't believe her. But she said nothing. Back in her room, Claire unfolded the paper again. Only a piece of it survived the fire. But enough to know something wasn't right. Something had been signed. Something had been burned. And someone wanted her father's voice to disappear forever. The morning after her strange discovery, Claire stood in the hallway outside her father's bedroom. She hesitated for a moment before knocking. No one answered. She knocked again. Avery opened the door slightly. His eyes looked tired. His resting. "I came all this way," Claire said quietly. "I need to see him. Please." Avery looked back into the room, hesitating. Then he stepped aside. Edward Whitmore lay in the center of a large, elegant room. The windows were tall, the curtains pulled back to let in the soft morning light. But the man in the bed looked small, shrunken. His strong shoulders had become bony. His face was pale and hollow, his once sharp eyes closed. Claire stepped closer, her breath catching. She hadn't seen him in so long. And now he looked like a ghost. She sat by the bed and gently reached for his hand. It was cold. "Dad," she whispered. His eyes didn't open. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I came. I'm here." No response. Only the steady beep of a heart monitor nearby and the soft hiss of oxygen. She stayed for over an hour, whispering pieces of her life into the quiet room, how she still painted, how she missed Mom, how she never stopped hoping that one day he would call her. But he never stirred. And then, a few hours later, he died. Claire wasn't in the room when it happened. She had gone downstairs for a quick shower. When she came back, the door was closed. Margot met her in the hallway, hands clasped neatly in front of her. Her expression was calm. "He passed," she said, without emotion. Claire felt the floor tilt beneath her. "What? When?" "About 20 minutes ago. Peacefully. In his sleep." Claire rushed past her, into the room. Her father's body was still there, still and quiet. A nurse was gently removing the gauze. Everything felt surreal. Claire sat down beside him, taking his hand once more. "I should have been here," she whispered. "You were," said Nurse Carter gently from behind her. "He knew you were close." Claire nodded, wiping her tears. But something didn't sit right. 2 days later, the family lawyer, Mr. Bennett, came to the house for the reading of the will. He was an older man in a brown tweed suit, briefcase in hand. Claire remembered him from years ago. He had handled her mother's will too. They gathered in the study. Claire sat on one end of the long leather couch. Margot, Avery, and Lena sat together across from her. Mr. Bennett opened his briefcase, pulling out a stack of documents. "I'm here today to read the last will and testament of Edward L. Whitmore," he said formally. "This version was signed and witnessed 2 weeks ago." Claire sat up. 2 weeks. He could barely speak. Margot cleared her throat loudly. Mr. Bennett adjusted his glasses. "It was signed in the presence of 2 witnesses and a notary, as required by law." Claire glanced at Margot, who was staring straight ahead, cold and unreadable. Mr. Bennett began to read. "To my beloved wife, Margot, I leave all property, financial assets, and real estate, including Whitmore Manor and associated investments." Claire's heart pounded. "To her children, Avery and Lena, I leave a trust fund and shares in Whitmore Enterprises to be divided equally." Claire leaned forward. "To my daughter, Claire Whitmore, I leave my late wife's gold locket, which she wore every day. May it remind Claire of the family she once knew." Claire stared at him, mouth open. "That's it?" Margot raised an eyebrow. "You were gone for 10 years, Claire. What did you expect?" Claire stood up, her voice trembling. "This isn't right. He asked for me. He wanted to talk to me. He wouldn't leave me out." Mr. Bennett hesitated. "I can only read what I was given. It's legal and binding." Claire looked around the room. No one looked surprised. Not even Avery. Only Lena looked mildly amused. The lawyer handed Claire a small velvet box. Inside was the gold locket. She opened it. On one side was a photo of her mother. On the other, a small inscription. Find the truth. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it a coincidence? Or had her father left her a clue? She looked up, but no one else had seen the engraving. Claire closed the box and stood. This isn't over. Back in her room, Claire sat on the edge of the bed, turning the locket over in her hands. Find the truth. She opened the back of the locket, checking for hidden compartments, but there was nothing else inside. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that her father had known something was wrong. That maybe, just maybe, he had tried to stop it. The words echoed in her head all night. The next morning, she visited the local bank. The same bank where her father kept his private documents. She wasn't sure they'd let her in, but she showed them the locket, explained who she was, and asked if he had left anything behind. At first, the clerk shook her head. But then, after checking a few files, her expression changed. There is a safety deposit box listed under your name as secondary access, she said. Claire blinked. He added me. Yes, about 6 weeks ago. Claire's hands trembled slightly as the box was brought into a private room. Inside were only 2 things, a folded legal document and a note. She unfolded the note first. Claire, if you're reading this, then something has gone wrong. I'm sorry for everything. I wanted to make things right. This is the will I meant to sign, but I was too weak, and they interfered. Love always. Dad. Claire felt her chest tighten. She opened the legal document. It was a will, unsigned, but clearly drafted with her name listed as the primary heir. The estate, the assets, even the house were to go to her. A completely different version from the one read aloud. At the bottom, the signature line was blank. And then, the final page mentioned an attached video file. See attached recording of verbal confirmation, dated July 18th. But there was no video in the box. Just a tiny plastic case with a label scratched off. Claire raced to a nearby electronics store and bought a cheap laptop with a disc reader. Back at the estate, she locked the guest room door and popped in the disc. Nothing. It was blank. Or maybe, it had been wiped. Someone had taken it. Her mind spun. Who had access to this box? Only someone who knew about it. Then she remembered what Nurse Carter said the night Edward died. They made him sign something when he was too weak to hold a pen. Claire pulled out her phone and called her. Evelyn? It's Claire. I need to speak to you. Now. They met at a small coffee shop in town. Evelyn looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder. I shouldn't be talking to you, she said. Margot made us all sign confidentiality papers. But... She paused, eyes filling with guilt. Your father was not in his right mind the night they brought in the papers. He had a fever. He couldn't hold the pen properly. They had to guide his hand. Claire's stomach dropped. So that signature, on the will, wasn't really his. He didn't know what he was signing, Evelyn said, lowering her voice. He thought it was a pain medication release form. Claire swallowed hard. And the video file? She asked. I recorded it on my phone, Evelyn admitted. He asked me to. He wanted proof. But later, Margot asked me to hand over my phone. Said it was part of legal procedure. I had no idea they'd delete it. Claire stared at her. Why didn't you speak up? I was scared, Evelyn said, tears forming in her eyes. They're powerful people. And they paid me off. Claire stood slowly, her fists clenched. Thank you for telling me, she said. Evelyn grabbed her hand. Be careful, Claire. They'll protect that will no matter what. That night, Claire sat in her room, staring at the unsigned will and her father's note. She wasn't just robbed of money. She was robbed of her father's final wish. And now, she had only one choice. Fight back. The next morning, Claire woke up with her mind racing. The unsigned will, the missing video, her father's final words, find the truth. They all pointed to one thing. Someone had changed the will while her father was dying. And now, She had to prove it. She needed help. Someone who knew how these things worked. Someone who wasn't afraid of the Whitmore name. She sat in a cafe in town, scrolling through her phone. She searched for private investigators, legal consultants, even ex-lawyers. Most were too expensive. Others wouldn't take the risk. But one name stood out. Daniel Cross. A former lawyer turned investigator. Known for digging into corrupt family estates. Known for losing his license after a messy case, but also known for helping victims win what was rightfully theirs. Claire called the number. A man picked up on the second ring. Cross. Hi. My name is Claire Whitmore. Pause. Whitmore, of Whitmore Manor. Yes. What do you need? I need to prove a will was forged. My father died last week. His new will gave everything to his second wife and her kids. But I found a different will in his safety deposit box. And a note saying he never signed the new one willingly. Silence. Then Daniel spoke. Where are you? An hour later, Daniel met her in person. He was in his late 30s, with short dark hair, tired eyes, and a quiet intensity. Wore a dark jacket, jeans, and a slight limp in his step. No smile, but no judgment either. Claire told him everything. About the call from the nurse. The locket. The burned paper. The unsigned will. The missing video. Evelyn's warning. Daniel listened carefully, nodding slowly. This isn't unusual, he finally said. Rich families do this all the time. Someone's dying, and the vultures move in. Can I fight it? Claire asked. Only if we can prove the signed will was invalid, he said. If your father wasn't of sound mind, or if someone pressured him. He was drugged. Sedated. The nurse said they had to guide his hand. Daniel raised an eyebrow. That helps. But we need hard evidence. Claire reached into her bag and pulled out the unsigned will and her father's note. He read them carefully. This note is gold, Daniel said. It's not legal proof, but emotionally, it tells the real story. What about the missing video? Daniel leaned back. That's our first target. They went to the bank together. Claire showed her ID again, and Daniel flashed a legal document that gave him consulting access. The clerk, nervous, led them to the vault records. Daniel asked for security footage. Who accessed the box? After some pressure, the bank manager revealed a name. Margot Whitmore. She had entered the vault 2 days after Edward's death, claiming she was removing personal effects. No one questioned her. Claire's face went pale. She stole the video. Daniel nodded. Most likely. She either destroyed it, or hid it somewhere safer. That night, Daniel parked across from the estate and opened his laptop. I'm going to do some digging into Margot's financials, her past, everything. You stay out of sight. Claire frowned. What about the lawyer who read the will? Mr. Bennett. Can we trust him? Daniel smirked. That's who I'm starting with. He began typing quickly. Bennett used to work for a firm that buried elder abuse cases. Settled dozens out of court. Made evidence disappear. He's not clean. Claire clenched her fists. Everyone in this house is hiding something. Daniel looked up at her. Then let's start pulling the threads. If one of them breaks, they all will. Back inside the house, Claire returned to the guest room to find a note slipped under her door. It was handwritten. No name. Stop digging, or you'll lose more than just the will. Claire's hands shook. They knew she was getting close. And now, they were afraid. The next morning, Claire returned to the hospital to find Nurse Evelyn Carter. This time, Evelyn was waiting for her at the back entrance. I'm risking my job, she said quietly. But there's more you need to know. They sat in her car, parked beneath the trees. I wasn't the only one there the night your father died, Evelyn said. Lena came into the room. Late. After visiting hours. Claire stared. What was she doing there? I don't know. I was finishing paperwork when I saw her slip into his room. She stayed maybe 15 minutes. Did you see her take anything? Evelyn hesitated. I saw her leave with something in her hand. A USB. I thought it was strange, but I didn't want to get involved. Claire's heart dropped. The video. It had to be the video. Why would she have it? I think your father tried to record another message that night, Evelyn said. Something last minute. Maybe to undo what they'd done. But Lena got to it first. Claire's voice trembled. Why didn't you say anything before? I was scared, Evelyn admitted. Margot threatened us all. She controls the money, the connections, the hospital board. Claire nodded slowly. But you're telling me now. Because I saw what they did to your father, Evelyn whispered. He didn't deserve it. He was confused, yes, but he was trying to do the right thing. And they stole his voice. Back at the estate, Claire confronted Lena directly. They met in the upstairs hallway, by the long windows that overlooked the garden. You went into his room the night he died, Claire said sharply. Why? Lena raised an eyebrow, calm as ever. Maybe to say goodbye. Or maybe to take something. Lena stepped closer, eyes cold. Be careful, Claire. You don't know what you're accusing me of. I think you do, Claire replied. I think you stole the video. I think you deleted proof that my father never wanted this will. Lena gave a small, cruel smile. And what are you going to do? Run to a lawyer? You have no case. No proof. Just feelings. Claire didn't flinch. Feelings won't get me justice. But facts will. And I'm going to find them. Lena leaned in. You're already 2 steps behind. And trust me, you won't like what you find. Later that night, Daniel called Claire from his motel room. I tracked a hidden transfer, he said. A new account under Margot's name, $75,000 moved into Nurse Evelyn's account right after Edward died. Claire's heart sank. She was paid to keep quiet. Daniel's voice was serious. Not just that. That payment came from Whitmore Enterprises. Avery signed it. Claire sat down, stunned. So Avery's involved too. At the very least, he's helping them cover it up. Claire whispered, more to herself than anyone else. They all wanted him gone. And they wanted me out of the way. Daniel said, if we can get Evelyn to testify, this all starts to crack. Claire stared out the window of her room. For the first time in 10 years, she didn't feel like the outcast daughter. She felt like a soldier. And the war had just begun. Claire had always known that fighting Margot wouldn't be easy. But now, she realized it wasn't just about facing a bitter stepmother. It was about tearing through a machine built to erase her father's final wish. And they were playing dirty. Daniel sat across from her in a quiet corner of a library, flipping through documents on his laptop. Everything about the new will leads back to one law firm, Pine and Graves, he said. They specialize in clean estate transitions. Which is code for, they know how to make messes disappear. Claire leaned over the screen. So they've done this before. At least 5 times. Each case involved a dying person. Sudden will changes. The rightful heirs were always pushed out. The firm made it airtight, witnesses, doctors, and sometimes even fake recordings. Claire's stomach turned. You think they did that here? I think your father's real wishes were buried by professionals. Later that day, Claire returned to the manor to find a man in a dark suit waiting for her in the drawing room. I'm Mr. Sloane, attorney for Margot Whitmore, he said. I'm here to advise you to stop your investigation. Claire crossed her arms. Or what? He handed her an envelope. A cease and desist. If you continue spreading accusations, you'll be sued for defamation and harassment. Claire opened the envelope slowly. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "You're scared," she said. "You wouldn't threaten me unless I was getting close to the truth." Mr. Sloane didn't flinch. "We're protecting the reputation of the estate." "No," Claire said. "You're protecting the people who stole from a dying man." That night, Daniel got a message on his secure line. It was from a former employee of Pine and Graves, a junior paralegal who had helped format Edward's forged will. The message was simple. "I'll talk, but only off the record. No names. No recording." Daniel and Claire met the contact in a diner 3 towns away. The woman, in her late 20s, looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder constantly. "I typed up both wills," she said quietly. 1 week apart. The first will was longer, lots of clauses, family history, emotional stuff. It clearly came from Edward. "And the second?" Daniel asked. "Much shorter. Focused only on transferring everything to Margot and her children. It came from Mr. Bennet's assistant, and was rushed." Claire leaned forward. "Did Edward sign the second one himself?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But I remember something weird. The signature page came in as a scanned copy. Not an original. It didn't match the paper style of the other pages." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Meaning it could have been lifted from something else?" "Exactly." Claire's mind raced. "Can you prove that?" "I'm not giving you anything," the woman said quickly. "I'd lose my license. But if someone requests a handwriting analysis through the courts, they'll see the signature was added after the fact." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's all we needed to know." As Claire and Daniel drove back, he glanced at her. "You still sure you want to do this?" Claire stared out at the road, her voice low but steady. "They silenced my father. They erased my name. I'm not just going to walk away." The next morning, Claire was surprised when Avery knocked on her bedroom door. He looked conflicted, hands stuffed in his pockets. "Can we talk?" Claire nodded slowly. "Sure." They sat in the sunroom. The silence between them was thick. "I know you're trying to fight the will," Avery said. "I didn't think you'd get this far." Claire studied him. "You came to confess." "No," he said, shaking his head. "But I don't think this is what Dad wanted. And I didn't agree with how fast Margot moved things after he died." Claire's heart quickened. "Then help me. Testify. Tell them you knew something was wrong." He looked away. "I want to, but if I do, Margot will cut me off. And Lena, she'll turn everything on me." Claire nodded slowly. "So you're here to warn me? Or to spy on me?" Avery's jaw tightened. "I'm here because I want to help. But I don't know how." "You help by telling the truth." He stood. "Just be careful, Claire. This family protects its secrets." That evening, Claire left the house to meet with Daniel again. When she returned, she found her room rummaged through. Drawers open. Her bag dumped on the floor. The unsigned will gone. So was her father's letter. She stormed into the main sitting room, where Margot and Lena were having tea. "Where is it?" Claire demanded. Margot didn't even look up. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You stole the documents." Margot smiled coldly. "You shouldn't leave legal paperwork lying around. What if it got lost? Or accidentally destroyed?" Claire turned to Lena. "Is this your work too?" Lena sipped her tea calmly. "You're paranoid. You might want to see someone about that." Claire's voice cracked. "You stole his last words." Margot stood up slowly. "No, dear. He gave them to me. Everything he had, he gave to me. Because you left him. You abandoned him." Claire stepped back, shaking with anger. I'm going to expose all of you, she whispered. This isn't over. Margot tilted her head. Oh, but it is. Go home, Claire. There's nothing left for you here. But she wasn't going home. She drove straight to Daniel's motel and told him everything. They sat together in silence for a long time. Then Daniel pulled out a USB stick. I backed up the note and the unsigned will when you first gave them to me, he said. I knew they'd try something. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Daniel looked at her seriously. They're trying to break you. But you're stronger than them. Claire looked out at the night. I'm not just fighting for money, she whispered. I'm fighting for my father's truth. And for every daughter who's ever been erased. 2 weeks later, Claire stood in court, facing the people who had stolen everything from her. The courtroom was quiet except for the hum of whispers and the scratching of pens. Margot sat at the defense table, dressed in grey silk, calm and unbothered. Lena sat beside her, arms crossed, eyes cold. Avery avoided eye contact. Claire's heart pounded, but she stood tall beside Daniel. He whispered, "You ready?" She nodded. "Let's do this." The judge entered. This court will now hear the matter of Whitmore versus Whitmore Estate, challenging the validity of the last will and testament of Edward Whitmore. Claire's lawyer began. Your Honor, we intend to prove that the second will, which left everything to Mrs. Margot Whitmore and her children, was not created or signed in accordance with Edward Whitmore's true wishes. We will demonstrate that the signature on the new will was either forged or manipulated and that undue influence was used while the deceased was under heavy medication, near death. Margot's attorney scoffed. But Claire stayed focused. Their first witness was the nurse Claire had tracked down, Ellen Wade, the night nurse who was with Edward in his final weeks. She spoke clearly. Mr. Whitmore was very weak. He couldn't even hold a pen without help. Daniel stood. Did you ever witness him signing a new will? No. I never saw him go over any legal documents. He did ask me several times if his daughter Claire was coming back. Claire blinked, fighting tears. Did he ever mention leaving everything to Margot? The nurse shook her head. No. He said he hoped Claire would forgive him one day, that he regretted pushing her away. Claire's hands clenched. Her father had wanted her. Then came the testimony of the handwriting expert. He was sharp, confident. The signature on the second will, he explained, was lifted from a previous document, scanned, and digitally placed onto the page. The ink saturation and alignment do not match the rest of the page. It is my professional opinion that this will is a forgery. Gasps filled the courtroom. Margot leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Her attorney stood, objecting, but the damage was done. Claire took the stand. She told the story in her own words, her estrangement from her father, his letters, the unsigned will, and the missing documents. She spoke not like a lawyer, but like a daughter. I made mistakes, she said quietly. But I came back to say goodbye. And I wasn't allowed to. I came back too late, and then they made it look like I never mattered at all. But I did. I know I did. Her voice broke, but she didn't cry. I'm not fighting for money. I'm fighting because what they did was wrong. They changed his last wishes. They tried to erase me. And I won't let them. The defense fought hard. They painted Claire as bitter, money-hungry, and unstable. Lena took the stand and smirked through every question. He never mentioned Claire, she said coolly. Not once. She was always trouble. My mother took care of him in his final days. Claire didn't even show up. Daniel leaned toward Claire. They're digging their own grave. Claire nodded. Let them. Finally, Avery was called to the stand. He hesitated. He looked at Margot, at Lena, then at Claire. And then he spoke. I lied, he said suddenly. My father did ask for Claire. He didn't want the new will. He cried the night before it was signed. Said he was scared. Margot's lawyer shouted, "Objection!" The judge raised her hand. Overruled. Let him speak. Avery's voice cracked. I was scared to tell the truth. But my father wasn't perfect, and neither was Claire, but she was his daughter. And he wanted to make things right. Claire's eyes widened in shock. Avery looked at her, and nodded. The courtroom fell silent. The judge looked over the documents, the testimonies, and the forged signature. Then came her ruling. 3 weeks later, Claire returned to the Whitmore estate. Not as an intruder, but as the rightful heir. The judge had ruled in her favor. The second will was null and void, forged under undue influence. The original will, the one that split Edward's estate between Claire and a foundation he had dreamed of starting, was reinstated. Margot and Lena were ordered to vacate the property. Criminal charges for fraud and forgery were pending. Avery quietly left town. And Claire? She walked through the halls of the house she once called home, not with pride, but with sorrow. She found the old study, the one her father used to sit in for hours. And on the desk, a letter. In her father's handwriting. She picked it up, breath trembling. Claire, if you're reading this, it means you came back. I wish I could have said this to your face. But I wasn't brave enough. I didn't know how to reach you after everything we said. You were right, I was cruel. I was blind. But I loved you. I never stopped. And when I changed the will, it wasn't because I stopped caring, it was because I was ashamed. I wanted to punish myself for losing you. If you choose to forgive me, even a little, know that I died with love in my heart for you. You were always my greatest joy. Love. Dad. Claire folded the letter slowly, holding it to her chest. Tears ran freely now. But they weren't bitter. They were full of release. Outside the estate, reporters were waiting. Microphones. Cameras. Questions. Miss Whitmore, how does it feel to win? Claire took a deep breath and stepped forward. I didn't win, she said. I just restored the truth. Claire opened the Edward Whitmore Foundation in her father's name, dedicated to helping families fight estate fraud and financial abuse of the dying. She gave a powerful speech at the opening. My father and I didn't end things perfectly. We had our pain, our silence. But in the end, I chose to fight, not just for myself, but for everyone who has ever had their story stolen. Avery sent a small donation with a note. I still have a lot to learn, but thank you for standing up when I didn't. The house became a symbol, not of wealth, but of justice. And every year on her father's birthday, Claire placed a single white rose by his favorite chair. No longer bitter. No longer angry. Just remembering. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Hit that subscribe button for more powerful, emotional stories like this. Drop a comment below. What would you do if your own family betrayed you like this? And if you believe truth always wins, give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because some stories aren't just watched, they are felt.